Today I'm sharing my TBR for middle grade March. Welcome to Candlewick Library. I'm Cheryl. I have looked forward to middle grade March every year, even before I started talking about books on YouTube. And so this year I was really looking forward to it now that I have a YouTube channel. I feel like middle grade March is one of those readathons that is really well known, but I'll still mention what it is. It's a month-long readathon where you are reading middle grade books. And it's a way of encouraging everyone to continue to read children's books, even when you're not a child anymore. The reason I love middle grade is that I have found that when you find the right middle grade book, they can be really great stories with a lot of depth or a lot of fun, and you don't usually get a lot of the content that you find in other books. I have been disheartened the last few years to see that content that I think is inappropriate for middle grade books and younger children's books. It seems like it's starting to seep into those as well, but you can still find some really great, wholesome children's books that can be enjoyed forever. And I think it was C.S. Lewis that had a quote that was similar to this. He said something along the lines of, "The sign of a really good children's book is one that can be enjoyed as an adult." There are 3 hosts of middle grade March: Life Between Words, Books and Jams, and On the Middle Shelf. I would recommend going over to the middle grade March YouTube channel if you're interested. There you can also find out the dates for their live shows and other things that you need to know about the readathon. I think I've probably said this on here before when I've done readathons, is that I don't often read the group read. I tend to use readathons as a way to read the books that I already own that I haven't read yet. And so unless a group read is a book I already own that I've been meaning to get to, either to reread or to read for the first time, then I usually just skip it. There's been a few exceptions with that. When I first started doing readathons years ago, I found that more often than not, I was disappointed with group reads. I haven't done the group read for middle grade March for a few years, but this year they chose a nonfiction book that I actually was very interested in, and I didn't own it, and that is The Mona Lisa Vanishes. This is by Nicholas Day, and it is a nonfiction, but it's telling the story of when the Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre. I've heard that story before, and I am very interested to learn the whole story and hopefully get all of the details of it. In 2016, I visited the Louvre Museum and saw the Mona Lisa. My mom and I were both actually really surprised at how much we loved it. It seemed overhyped to me until I saw it in person. So I decided to take a chance on this since it is something I'm interested in. I don't know if you can hear this, but it just started thundering outside and it's raining really hard. So you might pick that up in the background now. I love a good storm. So now to the prompts. The first prompt is a one-word title. For this, I chose Framed by James Ponti. You might have seen this recently in one of my haul videos. This was a book that was recommended to me. I did have middle grade March in mind when I bought it, but I didn't know I was going to be able to use it for a prompt. This also has an art theme to it. This story is about Florian Bates. He somehow gets wrapped up in a mystery involving the FBI and the National Gallery and some kind of mafia syndicate. So it sounds really fun, and I am looking forward to seeing if I like this or not. Number 2 is a debut novel. So I have had The Winter King by Christine Cohen on my TBR for quite a while now, and I was pretty sure this was her first novel, so I looked it up, and that's what it shows on Goodreads. What I've heard is that there's a village that's trapped in winter and a girl that is responsible for saving everybody. So I don't know too much more about it than that, but on the back there is a blurb from Andy Wilson, and he says it's laced with echoes of Till We Have Faces. I did read that book from C.S. Lewis last year and found it very interesting, so I'm kind of curious how that is going to play into the story. Number 3 is an immigration or refugee story. I didn't have any traditional refugee or immigration stories on my shelf that were middle grade, but I do have City of Ember by Jean Duprow on my TBR, and I've been wanting to get to this for a while. And on the back it says, "The City of Ember was built as a last refuge for the human race." From what I've heard of the story, I believe that it is people that have had to go underground. So if that's the case, then they are refugees. So I'm going to go with City of Ember. Number 4 is Animal on the Cover. And this is a book that I bought when it first came out, but I've been saving it for middle grade March, so I was very excited to see that it fit for a prompt. And that is the next book in the Myrtle Hardcastle series. Myrtle Means an Opportunity. This series is by Elizabeth Bunce. I've really enjoyed this series so far. I really love Myrtle, and I've thought that every book was creative. There's a couple of series I've read over the last couple of years that are similar to this, and with those ones I felt like each book they got a little bit weaker, and I feel like this one hasn't done that. I feel like it stayed just as strong in every book, so I'm hoping that is going to continue with this one. And number 5 is a book that you feel like you missed out on. This kind of felt like it needed to be either a classic or a hyped book, and I didn't have very many of those that I that I thought would fit. I thought about Swallows and Amazons. I might try to get to that one, but that's a pretty big book. And so I felt like I wanted to go with something different. And there's not very many hyped books that for the last couple of years that I really feel like I've missed out on. I couldn't really decide what to do with this one at first, but then I decided I was going to use City Spies by James Ponti, because I have heard a lot of people talk about this since this book came out, and I just hadn't got around to it. I found this and book 2 in a used bookstore, brand new, a couple of months ago. So I'm going to count City Spies as the one that I missed out on because I did not read it when it first came out. I also have 4 books that are my priority after I finish those ones, and those are the second City Spies that I got along with the first one at the used bookstore. If I don't like the first one, obviously I won't read this one, but if I do, then I'll already have it ready. The Boy on the Wooden Box by Leon Layson. On the front of this book, it says how the impossible became possible on Schindler's List. It was talked about on Book Zealots a while back, and so that made me even more excited to read it since I've had it on my cart for quite a while. I do really enjoy reading books about World War II, and I was really impacted by the Schindler's List movie when I was a teenager. I have a book, a huge book called Schindler's Legacy that is about the survivors, and so I am very interested in finding out what this one is all about. And then I have 2 more books that I've picked up over the last couple of years at the used bookstore. One is 21 Balloons. It says it's a winner of the Newbery Medal. I'm definitely going to butcher the name. William Penne de Bois, I'm guessing. Sounds like this guy is planning on going across the ocean in his hot air balloon, but he ends up on an island that he wasn't originally planning to go to. I don't know if I'll like it or not, but it's been on my cart for a long time, so it's time to finally read it. And 5 Children and It by E. Nesbitt. This is another one that probably could have been used for the book I missed out on, because I've heard about this book for a very long time and I've never read it. When I found it for a couple of dollars, I decided to try it and just see what I think. Sounds like these kids find a very weird creature in the sand pit near their house. I don't know if this is going to be a book I really enjoy, but it's very small. It'll be easy to read and to finally find out what it's about. If I get all of those books read, then I still have quite a few middle grade books on my TBR cart. I will just keep reading middle grade until the month is over and see how many of them I can get read. One thing I've loved in the past in middle grade March is it feels like I can read a lot more because of the fact that almost all of my reading is middle grade. I would love to know if you've taken part in middle grade March before, if you're planning on taking part in it this year, and if so, if you've read any of these books and what you're planning on reading. I just feel like middle grade March ends up being a really fun month every year. Not all of the books end up being favorites. Not all of them end up being books that I think are the best middle grade ever written, but I usually find at least a few gems and have a lot of fun doing it.